Hello, I'm Jo Maynard from Canlin and Maynard e-Publishing. I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Kevin Knight today. Hello, Kevin. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Jo. Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. So I'm just going to read your bio, just so everybody can get a sense of who you are and some of the many things that you've done. So Dr. Kevin Knight has a PhD in linguistics, an MBA, an MPIA, and a BA, and he's a professor in the Department of International Communication, business career major. And he's also worked at the Career Education Center at Kanda University of International Studies in Chiba in Japan. So in the English for Specific Purposes Interest Section, that's the ESPIS, of TESOL International Association, he has served as chair, English in Occupational Settings, that's EOS representative, and ESPIS community manager. He's currently editor of ESP News, that's the ESPIS newsletter, and he was also a member of the Governance Review Task Force appointed by the TESOL Board of Directors. In addition, he's been a TESOL blogger in the area of English for Specific Purposes. And in 2021, after being nominated by the leaders of ESPIS, he was selected as the recipient of the 2022 D. Scott Enright TESOL Interest Section Service Award. In the Asia Pacific LSP and Professional Communication Association, he's a member of the executive committee and he's taken on the leadership role of outreach officer. He has more than 30 years of professional experience working for private, public and academic sector institutions, including Sony, the Japan Patent Office. His doctoral research on leadership communication was the basis for leadership development under the supervision of Emeritus Professor Christopher Canlin and Dr. Alan Jones. Wow, Kevin, you have so much to have offered.
Thank you for that very, very nice introduction.
So congratulations on your recent award as well.
Thank you so much.
Okay, well, I'd love to hear more about the book from you. Let's have a closer look at the book title, and then I'll ask you to tell us about the book. Okay, Kevin, please tell us a bit more about your book.
Sure. Okay, so the title, as you can see here, is English for Specific Purposes Project Leader Profiles, the Leadership Communication of 55 ESP project leaders. The preface is by Ann Johns, as you can see on the cover as well. Basically, these are success stories. These are success stories of ESP project leaders, and they basically, the stories, I should say, in the volume have been compiled from blog posts over time that the profiles were initially published on the TESOL blog, the blog of TESOL International Association. And I would also add to this that the projects are on 6 different continents. And so it's a very valuable resource for researchers and practitioners in the ESP field. And so that in a nutshell is really what the book is about.
Is it okay if I ask you some more questions?
Oh, by all means, please do.
Okay, so you said the book is made up of blog posts. Can you tell me what gave you the idea for these blog posts and ultimately this book?
Okay, so basically, I was the chair of the ESP Interest Section in TESOL. At the time that I was ending my role as a chair, TESOL at that time was basically, they had their own blog for TESOL International Association. And so I volunteered to be an ESP blogger, and they limit, or basically they select who they would like to be, who they would like to have as bloggers in specific fields. So I became a blogger in ESP. And while I was in this role as an ESP blogger, it was during one convention, one TESOL International Association convention, that this idea emerged that we should find a way where we can share our stories with each other. And as a blogger, I thought this is a very good opportunity. And so I was thinking, okay, what I'm going to need to do is to collect narratives. And that's really how it all started. Um, and so these were initially published as blog posts. And then again, thanks to Canlin and Meinhardt, they're now being compiled into one book. And I think everyone who's been reading these is very pleased because that was one of the concerns. It would be really nice to have all of these profiles together in one volume.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's our absolute pleasure to bring them together and to publish this volume.
Thank you. Right.
So you've been in the area of TESOL for many, many years, and your area of particular interest is ESP. Can you tell us how you got into that?
That's an interesting question as well. Actually, I had been studying English, and I was also in a teaching English as a second language program years ago in the United States, and I was interviewed by Sony, and Sony hired me and brought me to Japan to work as a trainer. So that's where I was first introduced to the field of ESP while I was doing training work in Sony. And it's just been over the years I've had an opportunity to work with companies and with government ministries and to do all these different kinds of projects. And that's how I really first got involved in this field of ESP. But what really woke me up to ESP, I guess more academically, would have been my involvement with TESOL International Association. And it was within the ESP Interest Section. The leaders there were very concerned about how the field should be defined and how what ESP is. And so I was very fortunate to have been, I say, mentored by leaders in the ESPIS as well too.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, and then later you became interested in leadership, and your doctoral work then followed, I suppose. Could you maybe tell us a little bit more about your doctoral work?
Absolutely. Okay, so let's see. Chris Canlin, who was my thesis supervisor, had actually suggested leadership as a topic that would be valuable to explore. And I totally agreed. I thought that was just a fantastic idea and I should do this. And so one of the things I was doing with leaders is I was interviewing these, I would say, self-identified leaders. And in this case, these leaders agreed they were leaders. I thought they were leaders, but they definitely agreed they were leaders. There were no identity issues here. They definitely saw themselves as leaders. And there were two questions within these semi-structured interviews that I was conducting. The first question was, how would you define leadership in your own words? And that was just interesting to explore itself. But the second one was, I asked these leaders to tell me a success story in which they were in the role of the leader. And I wanted to know how they were using their communication in these leadership roles to achieve their success. And so this was quite actually in my research interviews, this was a really long question. It had many different parts, tell me about the stakeholders and all of this. But for the blog posts, I really narrowed this down to two questions. One was about defining leadership, and one was about an ESP success story. And again, I wanted to know how the leaders had used their communication to achieve the success. And really, that's how my doctoral research and the profiles within the book are really connected.
Yeah, we were talking earlier and you said everything is connected, and I can really see how that works now. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, that was really interesting.
Sure.
And how about, is there anyone in particular, or, who have been your role models or influences as a leader?
That's an interesting question. Do I have a role model as a leader? Not really. Honestly, I don't have anyone who I would have considered to be a role model for leadership. Um, I guess I'm interested in people who are creating. And in this sense, they're usually in leadership roles, maybe entrepreneurs, and they have created businesses and they have achieved success um, in this case. But I haven't really tried to follow or to emulate one leader in particular, which is interesting. No one has really asked me this question before, so gave me a chance to think about it here.
Okay, thank you. Well, look, the book is out, and you know, congratulations again. But let's have a look at how people can get hold of the book. Okay, so here's the website from the Canlin and Minard website. Here's the website dedicated to this book. And on here, you can see a description of the book and the contents. And you can see there's an endorsement by Vijay K. Bhatia. And the book will be available from this website for free. So you can download PDF or EPUB or Mobi versions from this website. If you prefer a print version, I know, you know, sometimes it's very nice to have a print version in your hand as well, then you can purchase one of those from Amazon. But the book itself, the ebook, will be free to anybody who wants it. So we're really hoping that lots of people will read it and be as inspired as I was when I've been reading these various stories for the last year or so while we've been working on the book. So congratulations again, Kevin. Is there anything else you want to say to finish up?
Oh, definitely. You know, what is the value of this book? Well, think of it this way. You have these 55 narratives of these ESP project leaders. As someone who is interested in the field of ESP, these experiences are going to be very valuable just to see how these leaders use their communication to influence others, to make these projects successful. That's one thing. But at the same time, I've added chapters at the beginning and the end of the book. And in the first chapter, I guide readers to really look at these profiles as communication. How were these leaders actually, what were they actually doing within the profiles themselves? And what are the things that shaped this communication? Why are they talking about their projects in this way? And why are they talking about leadership in a certain way? And then at the end of the book, we look more closely at leadership itself within the profiles. And so I find this to be really valuable because you can see how these project leaders are creating visions to achieve, how they're communicating to create these visions. And you can also see how they're communicating to achieve these visions. And so I think really from two perspectives, from an ESP project perspective and from a leadership perspective, they're both really valuable ways to look at the field. So I would encourage anyone who is interested in ESP to definitely pick up a copy. And I think you'll really enjoy all of the content. And I'm really happy that this is going to be made available to you. So definitely pick up a copy.
Okay, I completely agree with all of that, of course. Thanks again. Okay, thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Joe. Bye.